folks. We're picking up where we left off last week in our conversation with Dr. Regina Wilson and certified licensed counselor for New Haven County, Shanira Billups. And we were talking about how the pandemic has been particularly difficult for the mental health of young Black kids. So let's get right back into that conversation.
Actually, I want to start this conversation going back to a previous podcast that I did. And the focus was that the Black community itself must put more focus on the mental health needs of the Black community. Do you agree with that?
Yes, yes, we do need to do that, but it's like how? And it's also a matter of looking at with the behavioral health. I strongly feel, and Dr. Wilson, you know, I'm relying on you for a different perspective with this, but I strongly feel that as far as Black mental health care, it looks very different from mental health care that's given to those of white background because of, again, where we come from and what has kind of been the pressing as far as our behavioral health. We've come from a background of slavery, of deficit, of having lack, and having to constantly be at this attitude of pick yourself up by the bootstraps, stifle your crying, don't show your emotions. All that junk just crammed in. And then when you're left at your wit's end, where there's no more room to cram in, then and you're left subject to losing it. But it's like, how am I supposed to feel comfortable releasing these emotions when there's nobody that I can identify with? There's a lot. There's a generational trauma, dealing with things within the family, that a lot of brokenness, broken homes, things of that nature, and from a perspective of that, there's need for looking at being resourceful, helping people get better outlets. What does it look like in terms of joining the family together? Sometimes doing psychotherapy off the rip is not the initial approach that needs to be taken. Sometimes with some people, it's just open up like, okay, listen, I got this for you. I got that for you. All right, now that you're in a more stable environment, now that you have less stress in these areas, let's get down to your behavior when you weren't in that. What was that about? Let's see what's being exhibited. Was this based on circumstance, or is this a long-term thing? Are you finding that you're still experiencing these symptoms even after you're being provided for? But I feel that's more of the approach for Black people.
Yeah. So I want to also address that, because I agree with saying, Shanira, that is one aspect of it for me. This is the other perspective. I think the other.
No, we love different perspectives here.
I love it. That's why I'm gonna rely on you for giving that to me, because we need different perspectives. That's what we need.
I think we also have to look at how we view mental health in the Black community, right?
Yes.
So part of the problem is there's, I think, a lack of valuing the importance of mental health services, because it's kind of viewed negatively. Like when people going out to seek services are viewed as crazy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
I still get clients still that will say, yeah, I'm not crazy. I said, well, that's good, because you would be in a hospital. That's where crazy people go. And I said, we also don't use the term crazy. What we talk about, and I literally explain to people what mental health is. Mental just refers to the mind, right? If your mind's working perfectly good, you have good mental health. If your mind's not working, then you have mental illness. If you suffer from depression, you suffer from anxiety, you suffer from ADHD, you suffer from schizophrenia, you have a mental health issue. That's all it means. Your mind is not working the way it needs to. And so you seek out a professional who can then help you maybe with that, whether it's through coping skills, whether it's through art therapy, because we also, as Black people, need to look at also, and we'll talk about this in a second, other alternative approaches that might work for art in the traditional talk therapy. So we have to change the way we view it, and we have to kind of take away the stigma about it.
That is correct, because that's what took me so long to seek help, because as I explained in my book, I grew up believing that I was crazy. My father was very, he had an explosive temper, he was violent and so forth, but he was not no thug. My father was educated, one of those people that you wanted to talk to, be around, and so forth and so on. But when he came home, he turned into a totally different person. So I grew up thinking that I was just like him. I was crazy, and that was it. So
Mhm.
how do we get away from that? Because I understand that there are some parents who will not take their children to seek help because they don't want them to have that stigma of them thinking that they're crazy. So how do we move beyond that and let parents know, like you were talking, doctor, and say, look, it just means that your mind is just not healthy now. Just like if it was your body and you needed to do this or you need to do that, it is actually the same thing. But when we talk about the mind, there is that stigma that you are a loose cannon, so to speak, particularly, and I feel this acutely, particularly if you're a Black man. It's you're a loose cannon. So you're going to go off or something like that. And I've seen a lot of young Black guys, and I've talked to a lot of young Black guys. I know they need help. I know they need to talk to someone. And quite frankly, that's a huge part of getting better, just to be able to talk, discuss your feelings, and not be ashamed to discuss your feelings. So how do we move beyond all this so that we can get more people seeking help for their children and themselves?
Go ahead, Dr. Wilson.
Well, I think one of the things I'm going to say is sometimes we have to move outside our office and go to the communities, right?
Yeah.
Some people aren't used to even the office setting, and they're more comfortable maybe in their home, or you go to a community center. We have to do more outreach and more education. Again, this is what our forums try to do. We try to demystify mental health issues so that people can understand and let them doesn't mean you're crazy. You're okay, but you just need some extra support, right? So changing the way we're providing services to people is one thing. Meeting people where they're at. Shanira made a valid point. Is you can't work on a mental health issue if there's these other external things that are going on that you need to address. I had a woman I was working with, her daughter needed to get services and needed medication, and she was having an issue, so she needed her own thing. Even before I can begin to get to the trauma, I have to take care of these things. So I was like, okay, well, I know this person, I know this psychiatrist here, I know this person that does this here. You can check over here for these services. So I've been seeing her, I think maybe 3 months. We're finally getting to do maybe some EMDR to address her trauma that is going to kind of cause all these other things going on. But you got to stabilize things up here before you can begin to do the work down here.
The Maslow hierarchy of needs, that's a big thing. The hierarchy of needs, even though it wasn't Maslow who originally created it, but it's the hierarchy of needs, like building upwards.
Now, let me ask you, do you think it's easier, and I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, does mental health problems affect Black men more than Black women? Or do you find that it is across the board? It's even across the board?
I will go to my phone and look up statistics if you want, because I don't have a specific answer to that.
No, that's okay. No, it was just one of the things I wondered, because obviously as a guy, I talk to more guys than I do about this type of thing than I do women. And
I don't think you can quantify, because I think, as we were just saying, that men have a tendency to access service less. So to say that I see more women, then women are more affected than men would be a misnomer, because I don't know, because men are not seeking services. Men are out there suffering.
Yeah, suffering in silence.
Services.
Suffering in silence.
I think Black men and women are equally affected through the racism, through the sexual violence, through substance abuse. I don't know what the statistics are, but I think it's probably running close together. For me, it would be.
I feel that what should be looked at even more so, like if one is more affected than the other, look at some of the factors that are determining the impact it has on them being able to seek services. Again, going back to availability, going back to access and influence, that can definitely determine numbers as far as or can influence numbers as far as people seeking out services. If there's bigger support systems, like with in terms of women who are embracing in terms of like, being that nature, they will seek out probably connections with their own supports. They're generally in terms of leading families as far as that goes. Statistically speaking, like a lot of Black women had their families. And it's like them just dealing with that, they're probably going to seek out services a little bit more because they got a lot more riding on them as far as on the outskirts. But with men, they still got a lot riding on them. But as far as the availability of supports and the stigma that's placed on them, it may deter them from going and seeking that assistance that they need.
Well, in talking to many Black men, I find that their view of women is a little askew. They just don't seem to, it's always, oh, this woman, this, that, and that, and they don't seem to take their own, they don't seem to understand the role that they're playing in that. And I got into a very heated argument with one guy we were sitting in the park, and I don't know, do you know Michael Jefferson, the attorney here in New Haven?
Yes.
Okay. I had a very good conversation with him on the podcast, and one of the things we talked about is we didn't understand that, because actually, if it wasn't for Black women, we would probably still be in chains, because Black women pretty much let us out of that. It is Black women, for the most part, or I should say a large part, who are opening businesses, getting involved in politics, out there on the front lines of social issues to create change. Not that there aren't Black men out there, but it is largely driven by Black women, right down to the last election. It was Black women on the forefront that got Biden into office. So where does that come from? I know it comes from growing up in that type of environment, but why can't we move beyond that as we become adults? Black men, I'm referring to.
So I don't want to generalize. I want to be careful not to generalize, because like you said, most Black men, I'm like, I don't want to generalize. So there's a subgroup of Black men that tend to have this view of Black women. But again, so I think, for me, I look at it like this: a totem pole, right? We know who thinks they're at the top of the totem pole.
Right.
We're at the bottom. We actually aren't even on the totem pole. If you really want to look at it, we're not even on the totem. We're not even considered on the totem pole. And it's like grabbing for scraps, right? The way an individual is vilified in this society, it is easier to go with the villain than to identify with the vilifier, the person vilified, because then again, like I was saying, you are like them, right?
Right.
Why the Black man tends to look negatively on the Black woman. Some Black men tend to look negatively on the Black woman because of the way society negatively views the Black woman. They're just going along with already what the views are, right? For me, that's one aspect of it. I think another thing is the intimidation, the jealousy. They want to provide, they want to excel, they want to do these things, but there are systemic racism and institutional racism in place that keeps people from succeeding.
That's correct.
They let a couple of us succeed, right? They'll let a Black woman succeed before a Black male.
Before a Black man, that is correct.
Right. So these are also factors that tie into, I think, some of the views. And I think that's why it's important for Black men to go ahead and seek out treatment. Because like I was talking to a guy in programs. It was Philadelphia, but I think he was in California, and he was talking about the men's group he run. And he recognized that these men have trauma and stuff, but he knows he can't go in there and expect them to just start talking about all the things. So they go in and they might start talking about a car. Then a car becomes an analogy for their feelings.
For the feelings, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you have to be open to, again, being creative and trying to reach Black men in different ways. Also, there's other things like you can do sound healing. Sound healing is nature to our ancestry. It's like it's drumming. It's the chakra bowls you can use.
Well, how does that help?
How does it help?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well,
Sure,
I'm thinking that, oh, if I could just super quick go back to what Dr. Wilson says in terms of
Okay,
men and
well,
women, I feel it's like a objective versus subjective, where as far as the behavioral health approach, with women, you might be able to approach it from a more subjective point of view, and men more objectively in terms of taking concrete examples and kind of weaving it into their everyday experience, and then opening up doors to discussing things more behavioral health. Whereas with, sometimes with women, it's more subjective. You can talk about emotions, bring it up. I felt angry today. This happened. I was feeling some sort of way, being much more in tune. And I think that the opportunity to be more in tune comes from the connection that we have based upon the community and how we deal with the things of everyday life, being Black women. Now, as far as sound healing, it helps to bring a balance. I'm not sure if you ever listen to rain just falling, or maybe, I know it sounds probably weird, when somebody is crunching and it's just like just plain that going on, just nothing
When
else.
someone is
It's
doing
just
what?
sometimes the crunching on something. Like,
Oh,
if they
okay.
ever heard someone just crunching on something, and they have actual videos like on YouTube and things like that. What happens is like it's like a background noise, but it's something soothing about it, where it's just that concentration allowing to zone in, and it just silences everything. I know even when I was in college and I was studying, what was helpful for me was having white noise, where it was like a background noise. Not necessarily anything I was listening to. It could be the TV on low in the background, or maybe just being around an environment that had nothing but night noises in the background, nothing loud or invasive or intrusive, but something that just kind of helps to blend in. Even with the body, it's found that like when your ears are off balance, you can be off balance yourself. So just having that balance is super helpful. Sound is everything.
So what it is with sound, and that was great. I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more. It has a harmonizing effect on the body. So if you think of the body as energy and vibrations, right? With the sounds, so there's different sounds, like they talk about megahertz and everything, and like 417, 417. What are other? 528. These are like frequencies. So it's frequencies are produced, and it can induce like relaxation, decrease anxiety. It also has a way of releasing trauma, because it's working with the vibrations and the harmonies of the body to release this stuff. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, about 4 years ago, almost give myself an extra age. When I turned 50, I said, I want to do things differently. And I said, I want to go and learn different things. So I did a shamanic yoga study, and I also started doing, going to sound healing things. Didn't know what it was. The most relaxing experience, but I also found a lot of the issues that I had were resolving without me having gone to traditional talk therapy. And I've done talk therapy in the past. I don't believe it is for everyone. People need different modalities available, which is why I tell people, if I'm not working for you, please just try someone else, because therapy is important. I want you to have success,
Yes.
But I started doing sound healing, and I also studied to become Reiki. I'm a Reiki healer, level 2 Reiki healing. And Reiki works with the chakras and the energy field. And it's just like a balancing and relaxing and alignment that works with the energy and the vibrations.
Do you think that one of the problems with Black men leaving their homes and leaving their children is because of feelings of inadequacy? Do you think that has anything to do with it? That they feel that they're not able to keep up, so to speak, that they're not able to provide this, they're not able to provide this, that. So instead of providing anything, they just tend to just walk away and provide nothing. Do you think that feelings of inadequacy have a lot to do with that?
I feel that feelings of inadequacy can be a part of it. It again depends upon background, support system, understanding or processing. Because you can have it where some men, instead of saying, you know what, I'm not giving anything, so I'm just going to step out, you may have some be like, you know what, I want to know, I want to learn, I want to understand. Who can teach me? I want to actually do this because I want to be a part of this. So it's like in that innate type of desire to want to. So then you get to the point of, all right, so what is it that motivates you? What is it that's motivational about this? If you're choosing to step away, how is it that you're choosing to step away? What is it that's pushing you to kind of go away from this? Are you dealing with anxiety? Are you dealing with fear? Or is it that you truly have given up on this thing and you're not finding any kind of passion about this? So you have to find a reason behind it. As far as feelings of inadequacy, it's very possible to have feelings of inadequacy, but as far as those being the cause of one to walk away, I feel that is more of the response to the feelings of inadequacy.
And what do you mean when you say responses to the feelings of inadequacy? Can you?
Again, yeah, definitely. So again, when a person feels inadequate, I can, for example, myself, I can feel like, oh wow, I am here and I'm not able to really give my son everything that he needs. Like he needs this pair of shoes for a specific class in school, and I just can't give it. I don't have the money this week. I can just choose to be like, you know what? Um, I'm just gonna pull him out of the class. How about that? He's not gonna go. And I'm gonna fight the school system about it and just gonna do all that. Or I can be like, you know what? He doesn't have it. Let me figure out how this is going to happen and just do problem solving as far as that goes. And it would matter based upon my tolerance and my motivation to be able to gear onto or get onto that idea of, okay, I need to seek out support and try to be creative as far as my problem solving versus having the all or nothing approach. I believe that is a term used in psychology, an all or nothing approach, where it's like either I get everything that I'm going for or everything just goes away and that's it, and just cut off. That's it. And that's a kind of a dangerous approach to have, because it's like you're not giving much flexibility for what might be possible. And there is a need for having tangible solutions and having that problem solving aspect. But because of feelings of inadequacy, you may have it where Black men may feel more motivated towards stepping out. What's capturing their eye that's on the outside that they're stepping out towards? Because majority of the time, they're not going to
Let
just be
me,
stepping out to something
can I
or
chime in?
nothing at all.
So I agree with Shanir that it may be one of the reasons, but I think there are, I don't want to say that's the only reason. I mean, first of all, we have a system designed that
Yeah.
teaches Black males that it's your family can get more from the system than you being in the home.
Right.
That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
We also have men that come from homes where healthy relationships weren't modeled, where you have a father maybe going in and out, coming back and forth. Again, remember what I said earlier, we learn by what we see. So now they don't understand the idea of commitment because they've never seen it in the home, right? So I think it's hard to say exactly why men leave. I mean, it could be there, like Shanir just started saying, there could be eye candy out there. Of various reasons, but the important piece is we just have to figure out how to help stabilize the family. You know, that's what the important piece is. It doesn't matter why they left. Let's figure out how to just stay, because we can't, there could be 1,000 reasons. I left just because I wanted to leave. But what do we need to do to stabilize the family unit? How can we support Black men such that they do stay with the family? That's a better question.
And how does that affect children when your father walks away? How does that affect children?
The lack of father figures is huge. Like, I mean, it's a for me, I feel it's a kind of a phenomenon where when a child can have much more response to the absence of their father, even if the mother has much more presence within the home or within that child's surrounding, and even if it's a supportive mother, it seems to be something about the absence of the both have not having both parents in the home. I feel that for a child, it also depends upon the resource when it's there, how much it's adding to their life that would determine their stability. There is going to be some level of instability when there had been something both there before, but now there's an absence. If the mother, though, goes into bring the child into the world on her own, has had no connection with the father, whatever the case is, that would be a whole nother entity where it's like the child hasn't even had the courtesy of being able to be in a home that at one point may have had both there as far as the support. And again, it would be dependent on the parent figure, how they support. You have some kids who come from adopted backgrounds who never had their own parents, who were adopted by a single person or a person with a partner. And that's another thing that can heavily impact a child, wanting to know their origins. I feel that the big impact is when a child becomes curious about where they came from and how much is actually disclosed to them, because they're going to come across it at some point, or just it's one of those kind of questions that they might existentially kind of wonder and ask. It's like, okay, where do I come from? Where's my background? Mommy and daddy, you're not my not my mom, you're not my dad, or whatever the case is. You're not me. So who do I belong to? Where is it that I came from? And they may have classmates, peers who actually have their parents, who have two people taking care of them and being in unison, or whatever the situation is, and they're going to naturally ask that question. But the thing is that if it's not talked about with them, and if they don't feel supported, it can impact their own thinking of what it looks like to understand love, understand support, understand satisfaction, all these things. And also how they view it when they get older, because it's like they can end up becoming that. Even if they say this is not something I want to become, sometimes we end up becoming that thing that we might even despise, depending upon where we come from and identifying it.
Mm-hmm. So if I could just jump in there a little bit. So I think, yes, I think an absent father can have a negative impact on the child, male and female. Probably stronger for males, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't in all cases, because the first thing I want to say is it's far important to have a healthy single parent than to have two toxic parents.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Ideally, we want to have the unit together, but if it's not working, then let's see if we can co-parent. Should they choose to disappear, then you can't do anything about it. Then you try and find mentors, right? There are mentors available that you can put in place. Or if you have uncles or close friends, I think, some mothers try to do quick replacements. That's not good for the child, right?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I mean, like they have all different, they get a series of relationships, in and out of relationships. And so now you're introducing the child to relationship instability. And well, this is Uncle John. Well, Uncle John's gone. Well, no, this is Uncle Steve now. Oh, Uncle Steve. Okay, this is Uncle. And so now you have this kid confused about, first of all, relationships, all these different people that are so-called relatives, but aren't really relatives, the fluidity of relationships they learn, which is not good. You also have, when you have the absent father, no one can really teach you how to be a man but a man, right? Amen. I can read books and I can say, well, this book here says that right now you're going through this, and this should happen next, or and I could talk to other men, but it's far better to have a man show a male child how to be a man. And girls need father figures so that they learn how men treat you. Right? And what what you deserve and not deserve. So those are just my thoughts on the absence of a father figure.
Well, in researching our little discussion tonight, one of the things I was curious about is, how do we go about getting more Black people to seek services? And I understand that there's a lot of things you can do, but I just want to get your feelings on your thoughts on some of the things that they've outlined. And one of the things they've outlined is the need to build trust. Do you agree with that?
Well, in any therapeutic relationship, you do have to build trust. But especially, I think, because historically, Black people have been betrayed by the system. I mean, we also have to remember there's also a fear in seeking services that you're going to take my child, right?
Right.
Are you going to report me to, DCF over this? If I work I use corporal punishment, as a mandated reporter, are you going to have to report me? So yes, like when I'm working with my people, when I have that first session, I talk about being a mandated reporter, because I know we as Black people, we'll say, like, we get mad, we'll be like, you know what, I'm about to hit you, or I'm gonna kill you. I don't literally mean it. It's just an expression. So I say to people like, listen, I understand you may express yourself that way. My next thing I'm gonna ask you is, do you have the plans and the means? If they, no, then I'm fine with it.
Right.
Everything they say is not necessarily reportable. So you have to do that. But I also try to let people, I let people go at their pace. I'm not trying to force things out of them. I also will use myself. I use stories about myself because people want to feel connected. And it's like, for Black people, we're telling you everything about us. We're telling you this and this and this. I know nothing about you. That's uncomfortable. So if I have a story that's relatable to what they're talking about, and I got plenty of stories, I'll share it, because it humanizes me. It humanizes the whole therapeutic process. It increases trust. I also, I tell people also, I say, if you know how to reach me. I have my set time I see weekly, but if someone has something going on, text me. If I'm free, I'm gonna call you. That makes people feel like they can rely on me. It increases trust, I will tell people.
I would think that for your clients, so to speak, I would think that you sharing personal stories about some of the challenges that you went through kind of makes them feel, okay, it's not me. It's not the fact that I'm uneducated, or that I don't have a decent life. Even people who aren't educated and are our vision.
Try to normalize what they're trying to help normalize and desensitize their issues so that they can feel comfortable.
It's the cultural, I feel a lot of it is understanding diversity and cultural competency. Being able to mold yourself according to the environment that you plan to do counseling services in. Being able to understand who your client is. A huge part of that is listening and allowing yourself as a social worker, professional counselor, whatever the case is, to have a certain level of vulnerability. Asking yourself in times of discussing things with clients, and I deal with it all the time, where I have clients where, I can perform all the, I'm eclectic in my approach. So I can have all sorts of approaches, but until I do something that might show a little bit more of my human side, that may help out the rapport, there might still be walls up, because it's always just something of some kind of doubt, or being someone who's a skeptic. I let my clients know off the rep, as necessary or as needed, that, hey, listen, I get you. This is a rough time. You may have come here, and I appreciate you coming. And I hope that we can build this relationship as we go along. I let them know off the rip, if there's anything that you feel uncomfortable with, communicate that with me. Eventually, I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to get there, but we're going to make sure to go at your pace, because that's what I'm here for, to hear you and understand where you come from. A little bit down the line, they may talk about something. I might disclose, my own personal story, or I may talk to them about what their situation is, because I identify within my own self that I've been through something similar. So I ask them about certain experiences and see, getting the feel of, what it is. And I'm like, you know what? I hear you. And they'd be like, exactly. And it's sometimes I laugh to myself when I get clients to say, you hit the nail on the head exactly. And I didn't even have to talk about it as my own experience, but because I recognize what they did. And again, it's because of listening. You get some
Yeah.
clients, that's the biggest thing that my clients come to me about. They're like, listen, I'm going to you and I don't like other services because they don't listen to me. They're too busy. They see my situation. They read up on me. They stick me here and then they leave me.
They're gonna
Client
judge me.
abandonment, big thing. Client
And that's,
abandonment, feeling
Yeah.
that
But can I
judged.
say one? When I just want to add one thing about the whole when you disclose personal stuff, it is okay to disclose personal stuff, and I use stories, other people's stories, but it is okay to
Yes.
disclose personal stuff to the extent that you're not using it for your own therapeutic purposes, right?
Yes.
I can do as much as I want as long as it's for the benefit of the client. When it
Yes.
becomes for me and the client is now being my therapist, that's when it's a problem. So I want to
That's
be clear about that.
Transference versus counter transference. There you go. Exactly.
well, one of the things they said, and I believe this is what you were talking about, is that they say there are more caregivers that the medical community or the mental health community must engage more caregivers and be more supportive of caregivers.
Yes.
It seems that the primary caregiver isn't just doesn't have a lot of support, and more support is needed for them. Do you agree with that?
It takes a village to raise a child. Sometimes it
Eh,
takes a whole city. All right. But
okay.
the support is necessary. Unless your parents come from I don't know, some kind of a Van Dome or whatever fancy last name of the Rockefellers, unless they that, like, you're going to need some level of support, especially in the minority communities. It's super important because
And
the children have so many aspects to them, so many factors in them. They need to come from different areas as far as the support.
the other thing I wanted to get in real quick is are police officers in schools, which according to my research is not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all to have police officers in school because it just lends the wrong impression to these young people. Do you agree with that?
I feel that
And
it
that's a tough
depends.
one because we have so many problems in the
I
schools.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that depends. I would like to say this. I've dealt with it where there were police officers in the school or security officer, and I dealt with it where the police officers that weren't in the school, they didn't have to be there. I could say that from my experience, it was helpful to have a security officer who was friendly, who was being able to, connect with the children. And that was a positive experience for me and a positive experience for many of my classmates from what we, in terms of embracing that. As far as right now, times have changed. And so you can get a person in uniform going up in the school, and if this child sees on TV all the racial injustice and all that, you're seeing these constant negative images as far as men in uniform, it's like, yeah, I don't want him in my school. He might just shoot me.
Right.
And that's the general mindset. I feel that it is necessary, though, to have a good level of protection, to educate them on the need of protection. And then maybe security officers or police officers don't have to go in like full uniform, all that. What is a way that they can go in there and maybe blend in? And then when time comes where they got to go and step up or whatever, then go ahead and handle your business because of you already got the necessary pieces on you. But as far as like going and going to be a full-fledged uniform and intimidation, that's a big thing. And again, it's because of what's being exposed on media and such. And unfortunately, you got some big-headed ignorant folk who are given this authority and they abuse it and scare our children. And then you got it, and I've seen it, we got police officers who generally they have gone in there in line of duty because that is their passion, just as much as for me doing this line of work in terms of human services is mine. I'm not just in here to make $1 and to do whatever. And I've seen it where you got people who call themselves social workers, but they do nothing but break down and make it for a bad name where people are like, I don't trust it because you're going to tell all my business, or you just don't hear me, you're trying to stick me with medication. Okay. Every service has a negative implication.
Okay, I'm going to give Regina, we have about 30 seconds. Regina, will you please close us out? Some final thoughts.
Well, I think what we know is that this pandemic has been very challenging on our children.
Mhm.
And, right now, there really isn't any sight in there. So I think as parents, we need to do what we can do to support our children
Mhm.
by making sure we keep structure in terms of trying to create as much normalcy as possible, given everything that's going on. Paying attention to them, do family things together, make sure your mental health is in check.